Welcome to the Gospel According to Luke Advent Calendar, Day 17. Chapter 17, Sin, Service, and Sores. Remember back in chapter 15, we talked about sinners, and way back in chapter 5, we talked about sin. Well, Jesus had more to say to his disciples. There will always be things that people blame for their sin. This situation or that, there'll always be some excuse. But a person who makes another person sin, they'd better watch out. That kind of person would be better off at the bottom of the sea. So be careful it's not you. If you see someone who is trying to follow me and you see them sin, tell them. If they say they're sorry, then make sure you let them know they're forgiven. In fact, every time they're sorry and they really mean it, keep on forgiving, no matter how many times they mess up. But Jesus, the disciples said, that's almost impossible. We need so much more faith to be able to do that. If you had faith that was like the tiniest, weediest seed, then that'd be enough to tell the whole tree to get up and plant itself in the sea, and it would do as you said. This kind of thing is just what you're supposed to do. You're serving God. You're working for Him. When you've done what you should do, make sure people know you're doing it because you love God and want to serve Him. After this, Jesus and his friends carried on their super long walk to Jerusalem. While they were walking, they heard some random voices shouting, "Jesus, help us! Jesus!" They looked around and there was no one there. Maybe they needed a nap. Hearing voices is never good. But then they realized that if they squinted into the distance, they could just about make out some people just standing there. There were 10 of them altogether, just standing there, shouting at Jesus. Odd, right? Well, not really. These people had a horrid skin disease, a bit like our guy back in chapter 5. They were covered in nasty sores and scabs. Ugh. Everyone thought they might catch it if they got too close, so they got used to having to shout at everyone from miles away. But Jesus just looked at them all and said, "Go, and let the priest see you." So they did. But before they got there, they realized they were healed. Their skin was back to normal, and they knew they were well. One of them, a Samaritan, was so amazed and thankful that he couldn't resist going back to find Jesus. When he did, he couldn't thank him enough. He was on his knees in front of Jesus shouting, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." He hadn't quite realized yet that he didn't have to shout anymore. He was right there with Jesus. But then Jesus said, "There were 10 of you earlier, and you were all healed. So how come you're the only one who came back? You're a Samaritan, but you came back to thank me. You can go now. Your faith has made you better." So off he went. The Pharisees had been asking Jesus when God's kingdom was going to arrive. They were probably trying to catch him as usual. But Jesus told them that God's kingdom wasn't something they could see or something that would suddenly arrive. It was something that was already near with them. The kingdom of God. Is God a king? Where's his kingdom then? Well, It's kind of complicated, really. Jesus is talking about everything being just as God always wanted it to be. He's kind of talking about heaven, and he's kind of talking about earth. But heaven on earth too? That's a pretty hard thing to get your head around. So Jesus explained it a bit more for his disciples. One day, you'll wish you could see how it all works out. You'll wish you could see when God sends the Son of Man, but you won't see it. People will tell you to go looking for him, but don't. It'll be like lightning in the sky all of a sudden. But before all of that can happen, the Son of Man will be rejected by people and horrible things will happen to him. When the Son of Man is here, it'll be like it was for Noah and his ark. People were living their lives, and then all of a sudden, everything changed forever. It'll be like Lot and his people too. They were living their lives, but then all of a sudden, when Lot left, that was the end. It'll be just like that when the Son of Man comes. What is Jesus talking about? The disciples were expecting him to talk about God's kingdom, and here he is talking about Noah, Lot, and the Son of Man. Really, Jesus is telling his disciples that they won't know when God's kingdom will come to earth. But it could be any day, so they have to be ready. When the kingdom comes, there'll be no time to go back to the house for anything. The people who try to save themselves will be the ones who don't manage it. The ones who lose their lives will be the ones who are really saved. Just because people are close to each other, it doesn't mean they'll end up in the same place. Some will end up in God's kingdom, and others will not. But how will we know when this is going to happen? The disciples asked Jesus, their knees knocking together. When everything is ready, all the signs will make sense. Phew! I'm glad it'll all make sense in the end. There's so much to get your head around, right? Don't forget to join us tomorrow as we continue.